we will be understanding the concept of multi-level inheritance through coding. This is a student class which has few functions. This science class which has again few functions. And this science class is inheriting the student class. So the object of science class can execute the functions of science class as well as the function of student class. And this result class is inheriting the science class. So the object of result class can not only access the functions of its own class, it can access the function of science class as well as the function of student class. Here you can see that the student class is inherited by the science class and the result class inherits the science class. We will understand the concept step by step. So watch the video up till the end. In this lecture we will be learning about multi-level inheritance, and this is how the multi-level inheritance is done. Assuming that there is a class A, there is another class B. Now B class is inheriting the A class and there is another class C which is inheriting the B class. Assuming that the class A is student class, the science class is inheriting the student class, and there is a result class which inherits the science class. So what will be the benefit of it? Let us assume that the student class has a function disp student, science class has a function disp science, and the result class has a function disp result. Now, because result class is inheriting the science class, which in turn is inheriting the student class, the benefit will be this, that the object of result class can not only access the disp result function, which is defined in its own class, but it can also access the disp science function, which is defined in the science class. Also, it can access the disp student function, which is defined in the student class. Let us understand it through a program. See, this is the class student. It has a function disp student. Science class has a function disp science. Result class has a function disp result. And you are making the object of a result class. Let us understand the program from the main function. Here you are making an object student info of result class, and you are sending 6 parameters: roll number, name, Hindi, English marks, and physics and maths marks. So when you are sending few arguments, obviously the Python compiler will look for a parameterized constructor. Of which class? Result class. So control will jump over here, the parameterized constructor of the result class. And all these values 101, bin2, 70, 80, 50, 60 will be assigned to these parameters R, N, H, E, P and M. Assuming that these parameters are representing roll number, name, Hindi, English, physics and maths marks. Now here, in this parameterized constructor of result class, you are invoking the parameterized constructor of the superclass. The superclass of result class is science. And while invoking the parameterized constructor of the science class, you are taking these 6 parameters. So control will come to the parameterized constructor of science class, and these 6 parameters, roll number, name, Hindi, English and physics and maths marks, will be assigned to these parameters, right? From here, you are invoking the parameterized constructor of the superclass. The superclass of science class is student. So, the parameterized constructor of the student class will be invoked, and 4 parameters, roll number, name, Hindi, English, marks, will be taken along with it. So, control will jump over here. These values in R, N, H and E parameter will be assigned to these parameters U, V, W, X. And these values will be assigned to the roll number, name, Hindi, English attributes. These roll number, name, Hindi, English attributes are the instance attributes of the object which is invoking it. That is, of the student info object, right? So 101, bin2, 70 and 80 are assigned to roll, name, Hindi, English attributes. After that, the control will come over here. There are 2 statements which are not yet executed of the parameterized constructor of the science class. So the values in the parameters P and M, that is physics and maths marks, that is these 50 and 60 will be assigned to the physics and maths attributes. And obviously physics and maths attributes are of the object which is invoking this function, that is of the student info object. Okay. After that, the control will come over here at the parameterized constructor of the result class. These 2 statements are not yet executed, so these will be executed. This statement is computing the total attribute, and which is assumed to be the sum of Hindi, English and physics and maths marks. And one more attribute is computed, percentage, and we assume the formula for percentage is total divided by 4, right? Now see, this is the benefit of the multi-level inheritance. These Hindi, English attributes are of student class. These physics and maths are the attributes of science class, but they are accessible in result class because by inheriting the science class, which in turn inherits the student class, the result class gets all the attributes of both the classes. Okay. So the result class has 2 attributes, total and percentage, which are computed. After that, the control will come over here in the main function. You are invoking the disResult function of the result class. Control will come over here. You are invoking the disScience function of science class. Okay. There is one more way to invoke the function of the superclass by writing the super method and the method name. But be careful. While invoking the function using the super method, you don't have to use the self keyword. If you specify the self parameter, you will get an error. Okay. So control will jump to the disScience function of the science class. Here you are invoking the disStudent function of the superclass. The superclass of science class is student. See, while invoking the function using the super keyword, I am not supplying the self parameter here. So I am explaining you the two methods by which the function of the base class, that is superclass, can be invoked. One is by using the super method and second is by specifying the base class name. So control will jump to the disStudent function of the student class and it will display the roll number, name, Hindi, English, marks. So you got all the four things displayed. Control will come to the statements of the disScience functions which are not yet executed. So it will execute these two print statements displaying the physics and maths marks. After that, these two statements of the disResult function will be executed displaying the total marks and percentage. So let us copy this program into the Spider IDE and let us run this. See, roll number, name, Hindi, English, physics and maths marks. This is a total. Total of 70 plus 80 plus 50 plus 60 is 260. And the percentage of 4 subjects is 65%. Let us understand one more program to make the concept very clear. In this program, I have a class employee which has a default constructor and a method empinfo. This executive class is inheriting the employee class which has a default constructor and two functions. Officer class is inheriting the executive class and this officer class has a default constructor and two functions. Now when the object of officer class will be created, it will be able to access all the functions and methods of itself as well as of executive class as well as of employee class too. Let us run the main function. You get a text message on the screen. Enter details of an officer. You are making an object of officer class by name officer obj. Here there are no arguments. So Python compiler will look for a default constructor. Control will come over here. This is the default constructor of the officer class. Here you are invoking the default constructor of the superclass. The superclass of officer is executive class. So control will jump over here. This is the default constructor of the executive class. Here you are invoking the default constructor of the superclass. Employee is the superclass of executive class. Okay. So the control will jump to the default constructor of the employee class. It will ask the user to enter code name and salary. And the values entered by the user for the code name and salary will be assigned to code name and salary attributes. And these code name and salary attributes are of the object which has invoked this function. That is, this code name and salary are attributes of this officer obj object. Okay. You are invoking the off allowances function of the officer class. So control will jump here. This is the off allowances function. Here you are invoking the exec allowance function of the superclass. And execute is the superclass of officer class. So exec allowances function will be invoked here. Right. And it is calculating the CCA, that is city compensation allowance, which is assumed to be 25% of the basic salary. It is just a random figure. Right. I just want to explain you how the computation is done. Formula can be anything. See, what is this CCA? It's a city compensation allowance. See, there are cities of type A, type B, type C, and every city has its own expenses. Right. So I assume that CCA, that is city compensation allowance, is 25% of the basic salary. House rent allowance is assumed to be 15% of the basic salary. So this CCA and HRA are computed. And obviously this CCA and HRA are attributes of the object which has invoked this function. That is of officer obj object. Okay. After that, control will jump to the off allowances function here. It will compute three things. One is medical allowance, which is assumed to be 20% of basic salary. Conveyance allowance, which I am assuming it to be 30% of the basic salary. And the gross salary, which is sum of basic salary, CCA, HRA, medical allowance and conveyance allowance. Again you can see that salary is the attribute of the employee class. See. This CCA and HRA are attribute of executive class. See. So how they are accessible in officer class? Because of multi-level inheritance. Okay. So these three things are computed medical allowance, conveyance allowance and gross salary. After that, the control will jump here. A statement will be displayed on the screen. Salary information of officer is, and officer info function of officer class is invoked. Control will come over here. You are invoking the exec info function of superclass. Executive is the superclass, so this exec info function will be invoked. Here you are invoking the EMP info function of the employee class. Control will come over here. This is the EMP info function of the employee class. It will display code name and salary on the screen. After that, control will jump over here to execute these two print statements. So city compensatory allowance, that is CCA, and house rent allowance, these both will be displayed on the screen. After that, the control will come over here and these print statements will be executed displaying the medical allowance, conveyance allowance and gross salary. So let us copy this program in Spider ID and run it. It's asking me to enter the employee code. I am entering 101. Employee name is Bintu, that is my name, and basic salary is 1000 rupees. See, CCA is assumed to be 25%, that is 250 rupees. House rent allowance is 15%, that is 150 rupees. This is your medical allowance, which is 20%, that is 200 rupees. Conveyance allowance is 30%, that is 300 rupees. And the total, that is the gross salary, is 1900. If you followed this lecture, please subscribe to my channel, share the video with your friends, and do write comments. Thanks for watching the video. Have a nice day.